You might think people across the nation love where they live. After all, you wouldn't spend your life somewhere that you truly didn't love, right? Not always. In fact, a Pew Research Center study not too long ago determined that almost half of Americans would rather live somewhere else than they do now. Well, if you're in one of the states we're about to highlight, we don't blame you for wanting to move. Or, if you live in the South, for wanting to run away as fast as you possibly can. After analyzing all 50 U.S. states, we came up with this list as the 10 worst states in America for 2023. Number 10. Alabama. Not so sweet home Alabama. The state finds itself ranking as the 10th worst state to live in America this year. Alabama is the 20th poorest place in the nation. While not having money doesn't necessarily mean a place is lousy, having a lot of crime does. Alabama ranks 20th for total number of crimes committed each year. In terms of opportunities, there aren't many here. At 5.41%, Alabama has the nation's 20th highest number of people out of work, and the population isn't educated enough to demand raises either. Across the board, there isn't actually a single category where Alabama excels. Now on paper, Alabama may not have Southern charm, but there's a lot more than meets the eye. There's a low cost of living here, and a ton of outdoors to explore, where you can learn how to get unstuck from the mud with all your buddies. It's true that more people die of strokes in Alabama than in any other state, too. Number 9. Arizona. The first of several states out west, Arizona has several things going against it. Besides the fact that the summer months can be downright sickening, heat-wise, Arizona has a surprisingly high crime rate and very poor support in its school system for its students. Sure, we're well aware that places like Sedona, Prescott, Chandler, and Gilbert are awesome cities to visit and live, and that there's pretty deserts and lots of space. Fact is though, there are far better places to call home. Statistically, Arizona has a lot to boast about. The Copper State ranks in the bottom 10 in 5 different categories, folks. Total crime, including violent and property crimes, is 8th highest, and the number of people without health insurance is 12th. Arizona has the nation's 12th highest number of residents who live in poverty, too. Alcoholism is a big deal here. Booze poisoned the 4th highest number of drinkers in America here. What's good about Arizona? Well, it might be really hot for long stretches, but you get 300 days of sunshine here, the highest number of sunny days in the USA. That's great news for sun enthusiasts. They also have a cool flag, perhaps the best state flag in America. And if you like Mexican food, well, your choices are limited to the greater Phoenix area. Number 8. Alaska. Alaska finds itself as the 8th worst place to live in America for 2023. The northernmost and westernmost state in the country has higher than average crime, unemployment, and poverty. The schools aren't great, and the cost of living is actually pretty high given that everything has to be shipped up north. And while we don't analyze the weather for this analysis, it's safe to say that the state as a whole doesn't fare on too well on that metric either. That poor weather and lack of sunshine probably has something to do with the highest rate of violent crime in the USA. So any way you slice it, it takes a certain kind of person to want to live in the last frontier state. And, for the most part, you'd probably want to live somewhere else in America. Number 7. Missouri. Well, I guess I shouldn't have moved from North Carolina to Missouri. And while I definitely live in the best part of Missouri right outside of St. Louis, it's pretty clear to see in the data that the state as whole isn't all that great. From a numbers perspective, the poverty level is 12.77%, good for 8th worst in the country. Violent crimes are relatively sky-high at the 7th worst, especially in St. Louis proper and North St. Louis. And while I love living close to the city, much of the population lives in the rural parts of the state with not much in the way of anything to do. On the plus side, home prices aren't bad and the cost of living is pretty good. All thought, I guess you get what you pay for. Number 6. Tennessee. You know the saying, there's Nashville and there's the rest of Tennessee. According to science, both are undesirable. Incomes are the 10th lowest in America, which means lots of Tennesseans are living in poverty, and many struggle to find decent jobs outside of the booming capital of Nashville. Part of that is due to a population that ranks in the bottom 10 for education, Tennessee is top in the nation for number of immunized residents, which is good or bad, depending on if you're an anti-vaxxer. But most importantly, in Tennessee, crime is remarkably bad. Did you know Tennessee has the nation's 4th highest violent rate? Memphis, in particular, is a real mess. It consistently ranks as one of the most destitute, dangerous dives in the country. Memphis is so bad that even Google Street View doesn't go down many of its streets, many of which are near Graceland. But have you ever had a goo-goo cluster? They were invented in and manufactured in Tennessee. They're delectable, and there's even goo-goo ice cream. Once you have some, you'll be goo-goo for goo-goo. Number 5. South Carolina. South Carolina, the butt of North Carolina, has pretty big problem when it comes to crime. That's the leading cause of its 5th place ranking for 2023. Surprisingly, South Carolina has the 4th worst property crime in the nation. You have a 1 in 70 chance of being the victim of a property crime for every year you spend in the Palmetto State. South Carolina is also the 4th worst place in America for online dating. So if you're looking for love here, swipe at your own risk. Other factors that were a problem: very high poverty rates and America's 9th lowest income levels. This state ranks 1st for number of mobile home parks per capita, too, which is really bad news during hurricane season. But there are reasons to be proud of living in South Carolina. Clemson has won the college football title several times in the past years. Congrats to the Tigers. Then there's the boiled peanut stands on every highway of Framp. Boiled peanuts are like regular peanuts, but they're boiled. And lastly, the beach communities are some of the best on the East Coast, where people come from all over the world to play golf and vacation. Number 4. Oklahoma. You knew we were going to mention Oklahoma sooner or later, right? The 4th worst state for 2023 goes to Oklahoma. Where do we begin? Oklahoma. First off, the population of Oklahoma isn't insured. This state ranks 6th lowest in number of people with medical insurance. Considering that 43% of Okies carry guns, it might be surprising that this state has America's 6th highest property crime rate. Robbers must just like taking their chances here. Now, while people might say they love the cost of living in Oklahoma, the fact that this state has America's 4th lowest home values is a sign that there isn't a lot of desire to live here. Plain and simple. Another interesting fact: Oklahoma has the most women in their prison system than any other state. Some tough broads in the Sooner State. And, to top it off, Oklahomans eat the least number of fruits and veggies of anywhere else. Now, Oklahomans aren't all bad. Oklahomans are actually known as awful friendly folk who love living in wide open spaces. Number 3. Arkansas. Well, Arkansas doesn't place last in a number of categories like Mississippi does. It's worse off in more of them overall. They're just about as poor as folks in Mississippi. But it's even more dangerous in Arkansas than it is in Mississippi. Like other southern states on our list, it's a poor place with little opportunity. Although, to be fair, some of the gunshots that ring out in Arkansas every day may not be due to crime. Now, what's interesting about Arkansas is that the natural state ranked 10th in the nation for happiest states, according to a national poll that was conducted last year. So, statistics aside, people here don't really seem to care a lick. There are some bright spots here. For fun, you could join an outhouse racing league, or join in on some spontaneous hog calls. Number 2. Louisiana. Folks in Louisiana are really singing the blues these days. That's because things aren't going so well for many of them. It's a mess down here, to be honest. Louisiana ranks in the bottom 10 in 8 of 11 categories measured. It's 2nd in crime, 2nd in uninsured residents, 2nd in poverty, 4th in income levels, and Louisianans are the 2nd least educated people in America. Factor in the worst sales tax structure and some of the highest local sales taxes in the entire country, and it's hard to make ends meet here. Now, before you get all down on Louisiana, you should know that the Pelican State is actually full of some really friendly and giving people. The Cajun Navy is a bright spot here. Whenever something goes wrong in Louisiana, you can bet the first people on the scene will be neighbors and strangers. Plus, there's crawfish everywhere here. You can get crawfish jello, crawfish peanut butter, crawfish cereal, crawfish ice cream, crawfish spice lattes. Number 1. New Mexico. New Mexico is, by far, the worst state in the entire country for 2023, according to this scientific analysis. Sorry to break the news to you folks out there in the land of enchantment. This is the 5th year in a row New Mexico took the top spot. That's not great for those playing at home. New Mexico sees more break-ins, armed robbery, and theft than anywhere else. There's a saying there, if it's not bolted down, someone's going to take it, unless you put a sign that says free on it. With a staggering 66% of children finishing high school in New Mexico, their education system suffers year after year. 16% of New Mexicans age 16 and older have a reading level of 1 out of 5, which is equivalent to barely being able to read a book meant for grade school kids. There's a huge wealth gap in New Mexico, and wages are really low, meaning there aren't a lot of opportunities. When you look at the numbers, overall, New Mexico ranks toward the bottom in just about every statistical category you can measure. Are there any good things about living in New Mexico? Probably.